The sixth major arcanum of the tarot has the letter Va as its corresponding character in the Kabbalah, while its hieroglyph is an eye and an ear, being the most important organs which allow us to come in contact with the outer world. In the center of the card of the sixth arcanum, there is a young man who is being tempted from both sides. On the right, a modestly clad young woman looks at him, showing him the right way at the crossing, on which the man stands. This symbolizes the evolutionary triangle. It is the virtue in him. As the man standing in the center is young, this gives us a hint on the necessity of making fateful decisions while there is still time to put them into practice. I would especially like to underline this. The card is designed as in a mirror. The right way is that which is on the right side of the crossing. The way of vice, or the negative, and the involutionary triangle is here represented by another young but beautifully clad woman who tries to pull the man to the left, the wrong path. But the genius, hovering in the sky above the three figures, directs a punitive arrow into the evil, tempting woman of the left path. An analysis of the Staros, which belongs indirectly to this symbolical picture, will be given later when I am discussing its other properties. The scientific name of the sixth arcanum is bifurcatio, or crossing of the paths, briefly, the idea of choice, of decision. The vulgar name is the enamored one. As we already know, the hieroglyph of an eye and an ear represents the organs of human contact with the surrounding world of the senses. But what is the result of this? Only that to all outer objects and impressions there is corresponding subjective imagination. In other words, that which is inside is able to feel what is outside. This statement is of great importance to us. It explains the idea of the macrocosm, all the outer worlds and conditions, and the microcosm, or man, being an infinitesimal reflection of the whole. Analogy and reflection are the principles on which is built the pentacle of this arcanum, the great hexagram or Solomon's star, or seal of Solomon, the personal side of the great pentacle of Solomon, sign of the macrocosm, and so on. This pentacle is a combination of two triangles, see figure 21, one of which is the reflection of the other. In the center of the hexagram we see a staros, or lingam as it is called by the Hindus, symbolizing the process of fecundation. The vertical arm is active and male, the horizontal one is passive and female. The same idea suggests to us that the ascending triangle is primary and the descending secondary. This pentacle contains within it almost the whole of the contents of the sixth arcanum. We will now have some suitable explanations. 1. The ascending triangle can rightly be called the triangle of Jesus, for it symbolizes the evolutionary process of our redemption. The descending triangle can be considered as the triangle of Mary, of the element participating in the involutionary process of incarnation. The staros indicates that redemption is the aim, and incarnation only a means. 2. Considering our pentacle as a symbol of the macrocosm, that is, as the general scheme or development of phenomena in nature, we may call the ascending triangle that of fire, the sign of the evolutionary, purifying and regenerating process. The descending triangle will be that of water, which means the involutionary processes, condensing themselves and therefore being deformed. The Staros teaches us that the life of the dense, perverted, and complicated is only a reflection of the life radiant, subtle, and simple. Matter owes its life to the spirit, but there cannot be the reverse of this. 3. We may draw the ascending triangle so that it will contain the figure of a radiant old man, and into the descending triangle put the shadowy form of another human figure, no longer white-bearded and radiant, but black-bearded and massive. Then we will have the famous Hermetic symbol of the two cosmic androgynes, the macroporzophos and the microporzophos, white and black-bearded gods. The literal translation of both these Greek names, meaning macroprosophos, having a long face, and microprosophos, having a short face. The Staros shows us that the black-bearded god is fecundated by the white-bearded one, by an act of grace. Theoretically, we explain the presence of both androgynes in the general elementary picture of the dynamic process as follows. Consider the ascending scheme of that process. Every yod in it was the second hay of the preceding tetragrammatonic cycle. We will try to reach the first yod. The yod itself cannot be the primary cause of the dynamic cycles. That is the highest link, beyond which there cannot be anything, because that the highest must be able of itself to generate the lower links, and this means the attribute of the androgenity. We will symbolize this androgynous element by the point over the yod. Then the great tetragrammatonic cycle will take the form yod he va he, where the point corresponds to the highest androgyny, or macroprosophos, emanating from himself the father, yod, and the mother, he, destined for him, whose marriage brings into being the va, the microprosophos. The latter then finds a certain second he as a spouse for himself, and in this pair is then manifested the activity of the first family. The great way to the macroprosophos is through ecstasy. Here I would like to mention a similar Eastern conception. In the mysterious samadhi, the eternal aim of Eastern yogas and saints, which is one of the most scientific and most described paths to the whole. In our own time, a great Indian rishi, Sri Ramana Maharshi, proclaimed this way for all who are attracted to it. He gave it in the modern, simple, and absolute form of the direct path, or the vichara path. The final ecstasy of this way is the attainment of the ultimate parabraham, nirvana, and in Hermeticism, the great androgyny, the unknown point over the yod. The path of the great rishi differs from all others by its uncompromising ultimate aim, which is that final realization of one's own being. This is exactly the merging into the Hermetic macroprosophos. See my mystic trilogy, In Days of Great Peace, Concentration, and Samadhi, the superconsciousness of the future, in which the Eastern direct path has been thoroughly explained. The microprosophos can be found by everyone who really tries in his own heart. This is the ordinary, but sincere and inspired religious way. Bhakti Yoga corresponds to it in Eastern occultism. It is much easier than the direct path, but also much longer. Although the modest and sincere devotee does not count the number of his incarnations, he simply believes and loves. Astrologically, the sixth arcanum belongs to the bull, simply because the bull comes after the ram in the signs of the zodiac. Now, we come to the titles of the arcanum in the realm of the theosophical ternary. 1. On the plane of the archetype's manifestations, we understand the Seal of Solomon to be a hint on the great law of analogy, methodos analogae. 2. On the plane of our human activity, this sign symbolizes that which we call freedom of human will, pentagrammatica libertas. 3. On nature's plane, we will join the analogy to the surroundings in which it manifests itself. These surroundings must have a double meaning. They may bind and join, but also divide and separate. Therefore, the third title will be environment, medium. It is necessary to analyze these three titles separately. The first, methodos analogae, develops from the equation number 13. 6 equals 3 plus 3. One accomplishment, third arcanum, is followed by another analogous accomplishment, again, 3. And these are the contents of the sixth arcanum. We can also express this arcanum very exactly by the words of the mystery of Hermes, Verba Secretorium Hermetis, forming the first part of the Emerald Tablets, the Hermetic Code of the ancient Egyptians. I am giving the full Latin text with its translation, because of the overwhelming importance of this initiatory formula, already used in Lesson 4. True and not false, that is, absolutely true in the mental plane, exact, that is, rightly transmitted forms without distortion of the astral cliches, and utterly true, that is, so convincing that it can be verified and tested on the physical plane by means of the sensory organs method of St. Thomas. What is below is analogous to what is above, and what is above is analogous to what is below, for the fulfillment of the miracle of the unique whole. This last sentence can also be translated as, in order to make possible penetration by the unique wholeness of things. This text hardly needs any further explanation. Its beginning is the pronouncement of the law of the three planes, and its ends is the classical formula for the law of analogy, so rich in consequences for an occultist. For example, basing our judgment on the organization of the human body, we may be able to get an idea of the organization of the solar system, in accordance with the theosophical ternary, which presents the ternary of the human torso, as explained in the previous lessons. Pentagrammatica Libertas corresponds to equation number 14, 6 equals 4 plus 2, and equation number 15, 6 equals 2 plus 4. We read them as the sixth arcanum appearing as the result of the addition of the second arcanum, gnosis, or knowledge of the ways given for free choices, and the fourth arcanum, authority which shows us the right of free choice. And thus, we see the full picture of the problems of good and evil, subtle and gross, true and false, temporary and eternal, active and passive. All these happen so often in human lives. There is free choice, for both triangles are equal, but the Staros, Lingam, reminds us that the initiative for the choice of the evolutionary triangle gives us the impulse for higher activity, fecundating our imagination. The card for the Arcanum gives us a very clear and exact idea of the foregoing.